The following video is entirely based on interviews and stories reported by other media outlets, which we collect and curate in an attempt to provide one coherent and well-rounded history piece from the world of professional wrestling.
Support WrestleTalk!
Follow us on Twitter. Debuting in 2012, The Shield is one of WWE's biggest success stories. Roman Reigns, Seth Rollins and Dean Ambrose have all been the company's top champion and are all still seen as one of the best factions of all time. But how did it all start? Mi nombre es El Fakador, and this is the story of the formation of the Shield. At the end of 2012, Seth Rollins was NXT champion, Dean Ambrose was one of the most promising talents in the developmental brand, wasn't being featured on TV, and Roman Reigns was being groomed as a top prospect for the company. Ambrose and Rollins were already well known in the world of wrestling, particularly on the independent scene. After signing for WWE, they would look horns several times in FCW, which was WWE's developmental brand before NXT came along. They fought multiple times for the brand's championship, but Ambrose never picked up a single victory. This is perhaps surprising if you believe former WWE writer Kevin Eck, who in an interview with PW Torch explained that Ambrose was always seen as the guy the company were going to push as a single star. Dean was seen as the guy who was most ready at that point to come in and assume a singles role. He was seen as the best promo and having the most in-ring experience. He was seen as ready-made. Reigns, by contrast, was a reasonably successful American football player and really only turned to wrestling when he failed to make a name for himself on the gridiron. He signed a developmental contract with WWE in 2010, his first venture into the world of professional wrestling. What many will not be aware of is the fact that Reigns, Rollins and Ambrose was not the original lineup of the Shield. Well, that is, if both Eck and CM Punk are to be believed. In a blog post for Pressbox Online, Eck revealed that Reigns was never meant to be part of the trio and that Chris Hero, or Cassius Ohno, was set to be the third member. Punk went one further during his appearance on Colt Cabana's Art of Wrestling podcast by saying the idea of the Shield was actually his idea, the one that WWE stole. Punk explained that he had been approached with the idea of heading a new stable, one which would include Big Show and Daniel Bryan. Punk rejected the idea and instead suggested he lead a trio from NXT, immediately suggesting Ambrose, Rollins and Hero. According to Punk, Triple H didn't like the idea of Hero in the stable and instead suggested Reigns. Plans for Punk to lead the group were also scrapped, something Punk believes was done to make it look like the Shield was entirely WWE's idea. Speaking to Cabana, Punk said, "I pitched all that, they loved it, things got changed, I didn't really care. Those three guys got called up, they are all doing fantastic right now. Mazel tov to them." However, former WWE writer Kevin Eck has a different version of events. In his Pressbox Online blog post, he wrote that he had pitched the Shield with a different origin story. Eck explained that originally the idea was that ECW legend Tommy Dreamer would return to WWE in the role of head talent scout and that he would appear on Raw's 1000th show to introduce the babyface stable of Rollins, Ambrose and Hero. It was my spin on the Nexus, a heel stable of developmental wrestlers who invaded WWE in 2010. After a hot start, the Nexus fell victim to questionable booking and lasted just more than a year before being disbanded. Explaining the idea in a blog post on Pressbox, Eck explained the trio would win their first six-man tag and then turn on Dreamer. They would then explain the next week that they had simply used Dreamer as a stepping stone to move forward in the company, and then reveal the fact that the leader of the faction was in fact Daniel Bryan. As it turned out, the big angle we went with on Raw 1000 was CM Punk turning heel on The Rock. Several months later, it was decided Punk, who was WWE champion at the time, would get three guys from developmental to become his henchmen and help him retain the title. I suggested my trio of Ambrose, Rollins and Ohno to Triple H in a booking meeting, but as previously mentioned, Triple H was not keen on Hero and all ideas and storylines involving him were scrapped. Ohno was then released by WWE in 2013. Punk described Reigns as the pretty boy and someone that WWE had built themselves, which is something that they were pretty keen on doing, given that Ambrose and particularly Rollins were really successful indie wrestlers before being signed by the company. Since debuting on the main roster, the trio have amassed a staggering 16 separate title reigns, 2 Money in the Bank ladder match wins, and in the case of Roman, the most heat possible by defeating The Undertaker at WrestleMania. We've got other WWE Backstage Expose videos here on WrestleTalk, so click the videos on screen right now for more awesome wrestling content. I've been El Fakador, and that was Lucha.